Welcome to this presentation, which gives an overview of the sampling strategy of the various studies of the ECo-PPR project. The sampling strategy is a critical step because it enables us to target the right areas where the study will be implemented, and to have a representative sample size to validate our findings in the structured surveys. First, let's look at how we select the study sites. A site is defined as the administrative area that is a conglomeration of the smallest administrative unit of the country, which is the village. For example, in West Africa, for Mali, a circle or a commune will represent a site, while a commune and province will likely represent a site for Senegal and Burkina Faso respectively. In East Africa, a study area is likely to be a county or district, or where these are large, a subdivision of a county or district. Each study site will be purposively selected. We will target areas that have a higher risk for PPR, such as areas with a high PPR incidence according to country data, and with transboundary livestock movements, livestock movement corridors, major small ruminant markets, transhumance routes, and places where flocks congregate for grazing. Next, let's talk about sampling strategy. Several types of studies, qualitative and quantitative, will be carried out during project implementation. The sample size for each study will depend on the type of study and the resources available. A key informant interview is useful for planning further data collection, such as community meetings, the market survey, and participatory disease surveillance. In each site, one or more key informant interviews will be carried out with local leaders or veterinarians in order to gather local information on the livestock situation and diseases. The community meeting brings together a group of men and women from the study area who keep sheep and goats to discuss their small ruminant production system, their disease problems, and how they manage diseases. This enables us to characterize the socioeconomics of each production system. At least one community meeting will be carried out at each site. One meeting may be enough to represent some sites, but where there is variation in production system, environment, or ethnic group, it will be better to have more than one meeting to get information from the different types of small ruminant keepers. The household survey aims to characterize small ruminant production systems in relation to PPR and economic impact. 750 households will be randomly selected from each country, 150 per study site, although this may vary slightly between countries and sites, depending on the size and administrative structure of the study site and country. A two-stage sampling design will be used. First, the villages in the study site will be listed, from which a random sample of 10 to 15 villages will be made. For the selected villages, a random sample of households will be selected from the list of households in the village. The number to be selected per village will be proportional to the total number of households in the village. For example, if one village has 100 households and another has 200 households, then twice as many households will be selected from the larger village than from the smaller village. For the purposes of this study, a household is flexibly defined. It could be a nuclear family of man, woman, and children, or an extended family of a man with several wives and their children or other dependents, or a woman-headed family. As a result, the household may manage one or more flocks of sheep and goats. A flock is defined as a management unit of animals that are kept in the same enclosure at night, although young animals of the flock may be enclosed separately, and animals that are herded together during the day, although individual flocks may be combined for grazing depending on labor availability. The aim of the market survey is to collect data on the sources and destinations of animals being sold in the market. If there are just a few markets in a study site, then the survey should be carried out in all of the markets, large and small. If there are a large number of markets, then make a rough map of the market network using the baseline data and select a subset of both larger and smaller markets to represent the network. Similar studies in markets in Ethiopia and Tanzania have shown that for small and medium-sized markets, such as markets with up to 2,000 small ruminants, interviews with a minimum of 20 traders is enough to capture the majority of sources and destinations for the particular market. We know we are reaching data saturation when we stop getting new answers. For larger markets, we need to increase the number of interviews. There's a table in the Field Researcher Manual that shows the number of interviews for larger markets. To select people to be interviewed, we will do a transect walk. For example, if the market area is square or rectangular, we walk diagonally from one corner to the other. Every trader, buyer, or seller that we meet on the transect will be interviewed, if they're willing, until we reach the minimum sample size. The Flock Dynamics tool aims to document animal entries and exits at farm level to better understand flock composition and how it changes over time, as well as to estimate the disease mortality and morbidity. 2 contrasting sites per country will be selected for this longitudinal survey, and a subset of the households that participated in the household survey will be selected to participate in the Flock Dynamics study. In each of the 2 sites, we will follow up with 35 farms that will be randomly selected in each site, 7 farms in each of the 5 villages from the earlier study, to give a total of 70 households or farms per country. Households will be interviewed on a monthly basis to document entries and exits during the previous month, including births, deaths, sales, purchases, etc. Participatory disease surveillance, or PDS, is a method of disease surveillance that uses participatory approaches and methods, together with conventional disease investigation methods, to explore local veterinary knowledge and identify the pattern of occurrence of disease in an area. The aim of PDS in this study is to determine whether PPR disease is present in the study area, and to describe the history and pattern of PPR disease occurrence in the area. Areas of high risk of PPR will be identified during the baseline study to be targeted for PDS. At least one PDS will be carried out in each study site, but probably more, depending on the number of high-risk areas identified for targeting. Outbreak investigations will be carried out whenever a possible case of PPR is reported during the baseline studies, PDS, and passive surveillance. There is no specific sample size for outbreak investigation because it depends on the number of cases reported in each area. Disease surveillance by the veterinary services is often poor, so we don't expect to capture too many outbreaks from the official surveillance channels. We will also use outbreak rumors from field veterinary agents working in the regions and districts. We will aim to investigate as many outbreaks as we can depending on local circumstances, budget available, and logistics. The labeling of samples that are collected during outbreak investigations is very important, so that the sample results can be linked to the data about the flock and the area. Each sample should be labeled with the date of sample collection. The sample should be identified with the country code, a letter, followed by a number code for the study site, 1 through 5. Then, within each study site, you will start numbering the samples from 1 onwards, starting with the first outbreak investigation. Finally, use a letter code to indicate which type of sample it is. So we put E for an eye swab, an N for a nose swab, etc. The sample identification codes should be recorded on the outbreak investigation form so that the lab results can be linked to the clinical data and the household. More information about the project and the study design can be found in these documents. Thank you for watching this presentation. I hope you found it useful.